So you have,
Look at the size of that thing. Cut the chatter, Red 2.
you are in the perfect show where basically you can die and come back. You can be a bad guy in one episode and come back as a good guy.
Yep.
Next season.
Yep.
What is that like as an actor?
It's, I mean, you know, that's a classic objection. Leading question, Your Honor. That's a question. That's a classic leading question because it's look, it's tremendous. You know, most of the time, if you're fortunate enough to be on a long-running show, and this Flash seems to be that at this point, you know, one of the few things that you have to protect yourself against is repetition. You know,
A little louder. So you're translating.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, can you hear me now? I said one of the dangers of a long-running show is repetition, because the temptation is, oh, this was successful, so let's just repeat it. One of the things that I love specifically about my character, but generally about the show, is that we don't really sit back. We're not afraid to break a few eggs. We're not afraid to sally forth. Not all these ventures are going to be successful, but we're not afraid to try them. We've got decades of mythology we're mining from, and we're going forth. Right now we're doing Flashpoint, you know, and my character is a perfect example of what we do. Is like the idea that, you know, I played a nice guy who on season 1 who was actually the worst guy ever, and it worked. I think the temptation would be, well, let's just do that again and again and again, and then we're like, instead, I flipped it on its tail, and I became like seemed like an abrasive, malcontent bitch, and then with no social graces, who was actually, even though he seemed like a bad guy, was actually a very good guy when push came to shove.
And that was the interesting thing about your journey, because season 1, I always thought you were shady and you were going to be a bad guy.
Shady, I like that. I'm happy to be shady.
But in season 2,
on camera.
In season 2, it was completely reverse, where we thought you were going to be shady and you ended up in a good place.
Yeah, that's a nice thing about playing these characters. There's a number of different levels and different things that they're trying to do and trying to get, which colors how they perceive, and I think it's better than just seeming like, well, that's what he is. You know, that we have like I have an arc to the guys that I'm playing, and you might not necessarily know what that outcome is going to be and what that end game is going to be. That's any actor will tell you, to play something on a number of different levels like that is a boon and a privilege, and that's been my experience on this show.
What level are you going to be playing Harrison Wells this season?
I've decided this year to make him handsome. I'm tired of all the other stuff, and so this year, that's a nice little secret that I am going to unveil as the season progresses, and not tell you right now because that would spoil everything for everybody.
So you got to play a couple different versions of Harrison Wells. Which one has been your favorite?
It's interesting, you know, like my starting point is always the Reverse Flash, and the Harrison Wells in season 1 that the Reverse Flash, right? So I don't have to explain. Yeah. So the Harrison Wells that covered for him was never Harrison Wells. He was actually Eobard Thawne, and what's interesting is that Harrison Wells, the only real Harrison Wells that's germane to the story was only seen in episode 17 in the first season, really very briefly on the beach with, you know, his wife Tess, and last year was this guy who, you know, basically was Harrison Wells on a different planet and left it all behind to like grab a pulse laser and go find his daughter. So he was kind of like this dude on a quest, you know, and so you didn't really see him as, you know, a Harrison Wells, the scientist. So I liked I think our show, we have an overall conflict and an overall antagonist generally every season. But I think our show works best with a daily conflict, and that was one of the things that the guy I was playing last year, by virtue of his, you know, lack of social graces and abrasiveness, was able to provide to our show, and adds an element, like, because, you know, Caitlin Snow is so winning, Cisco is so winning, Grant, you know, Barry is so winning, Joe is tremendous. They're all tremendous, and having a guy that wasn't, you know, that was like I say, a bitch, was a nice little element. And that was a very fun thing to play. I think it added to the show because of it.
You also get to, it's interesting to watch the relationship with Barry has to be rebuilt every season.
Yeah, right, which is great. Yeah, again, that's a nice thing, because if you jumped on board a season, you'd be like, okay, we'll establish this in the first 4 episodes, and then that will be it. And what's nice is we do it, and then we have to break it up and do it again, and then break it up and do it again, and then the added element to it is because he's seen this same face. He's like, who are you really though? Like, because I don't know what to do and what to trust, and so it's not just a one-way street. The emotions that he's going through when he's dealing with me add into it, and the audience as well. So yeah, it's one of the favorite things he and I get to do, and then I get to do is reestablishing relationships with all these different people. Yeah.
Speaking of relationships, are you and Cisco going to have more scenes together? Because that relationship was so much fun to see develop over season 2. So I'm wondering, are we going to get to see more of that in season 3?
I think they'd be dumber than a bag of wet mice to not put the two of us together in a room. You know what I mean? Like so much of that is improv and just the way our mindsets work together, and part of that is we're that way off camera too. We're like they yell cut, and Carlos and I don't leave set. We hang out and joke, or we hang out and sing, or we hang out and like harmonize. And he's I will say this because this is for the record. He's a colossal talent, like the kind of talent, like in the way people speak of Lin-Manuel right now, who those kind of things, where he has got such an incredible ability on so many levels. He's I think that guy Carlos Valdez is one of a kind. He's incredible, and so our relationship off camera, I think something ephemeral translates to the screen when we do stuff on camera, and so yeah, I'd be extremely motivated to make sure that there's still some kind of relationship between those two characters.
And do you think it's a little too soon to think Flashpoint? It seems more like a season 4 breakdown.
No, that's one of the great things about our show, because yes, it does seem like that, and I think most shows would be like, let's wait and do this big thing, and one of the things we do is like, let's go do it. You know what? Let's just walk through that door. And it doesn't mean you can't do different iterations or larger iterations of Flashpoint down the line, because we can do anything. We can do time travel. We can do anything on this show. And what I like about it is introducing Grodd early on in season 1. Captain Cole comes out so quick. At first you might be, hey, are we worried at all about story? But Greg Berlanti, verbatim quote, there's always more story, and we're unafraid to reach for that story and go through and do it.
And I suppose now that you mention it, Flashpoint is the elephant in the room, because I'm sure everyone on Elite's always like,
yeah, you want to get into it. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So you had mentioned improv. So do the writers and the producers and things allow you to get input and say, hey, maybe this feels a little wrong for my character? Do they allow you to put some input in there?
Yeah, for example, Harrison Wells' negativity, that came from me last year. That was this would be, to make him antagonistic. The very first time I showed up, the cast didn't know what I was going to do, and I ended up calling Cisco Crisco and Dr. Snow, and that was a whole different element, which they welcomed and then built. Hey, this is. Don't tell me. Gosh darn it! No, I know it.
Tammy, come on.
This is guys. This is Garvin Cranston.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the introduction.
Ladies and gentlemen, Brian
This is
Cranston.
amazing.
Yeah, you're excused.
You're excused. Yes. Goodbye. New table for you. Are you?